Just when we're talking about video surveillance, I mean, I can imagine why it would be appealing to attackers, but are there certain aspects of it that make it particularly vulnerable?
You have seen the movies, right?
Yeah.
So what you see in the movies is actually not that far from the real world. So attacking the surveillance system is the first thing a criminal will do. The surveillance systems are in the front line.
Do you feel like you're on the front line of a big threat, or what's it like when you're kind of on the ground?
You can say that our customers put a huge amount of trust in Milestone because they use our software as a security control to make sure that that they can actually investigate criminal behavior on their premises with the cameras and the video surveillance system. So yeah, I feel responsible for our customers' security, of course.
Do you feel like a movie star? You mentioned the movies.
Nah, maybe not so much, but you can't help feel responsible for the well-being and security of our customers.
So if you were to look at the current landscape of cybersecurity, what do you think are some of the biggest threats today?
When I think about the top three, what immediately comes to my mind is ransomware and malware. I mean, we hear about it every single day, more or less, new ransomware attacks. And to some statistics even say that every 14 seconds, there is a new victim for ransomware attacks. The downtime you have in your business, rebuilding of all the systems, etc., it has enormous financial impact.
What about endpoint? I know that's also an issue.
Yeah, endpoint security is also a huge thing as I see it, because the way we have moved in the past 10, 15 years, where we have moved a lot from our on-premise system in closed networks, we are now, everything is on the internet. We are using cloud services. We are using remote workstation. We work from home. We have the attack surface has dramatically increased over the past many years. So I would say that is probably number two on my list. And the third is the very, very good old phishing. Even though we have a lot of knowledge about how to deal with it, we train people, etc., but it still just keeps coming.
And just when you mention training, I mean, I imagine that's one method of trying to counter cybersecurity threats. But just in terms of solutions, what are some of the options that are available today?
Yeah, when it comes to the solution, it's really a two-edged sword, as I see it. There are two very, very, very important factors. First of all, it is, and the most important one, security awareness and employee training. Though that is the most important one. Then we have the second one, which is the security policies and the technical controls we have in place.
Maybe if we're looking at that in practice, if I'm an employee, say, are there certain just good practices, just things that I should be doing in order to protect the organization and I guess myself and my reputation?
Yeah. So you need to be aware and you need to be skeptical when you look at contents of mails to determine whether it is a phishing mail. And be aware of what links you click on. You might be thinking that, is that really right? And you need to have that common sense of skepticism to evaluate whether these actions you are asked to do are sound or not.
I know myself, sometimes you get like a text message and it comes from your bank. It looks as though like it's with the same messages.
Yeah.
How did they do that? Or do we know?
And there are many. I don't think that this we should go into all the technical details about this. But you're absolutely right. The phishing mails today can really look trustworthy when you look at them. But there are always signs that will show they are scams.
These things like typos or...
Yeah, but the typos actually it's actually very deliberate. That you have read these weird spelled phishing mails.
Yeah.
The reason why they put them in there is to lure away the people who can actually, you can say that can actually recognize these kind of things immediately. So we have a people who will not fall into the traps, because when you start a phishing campaign, for example, or we also had these scam calls, we have a different kind of things.
Yeah,
where you are trying to lure people into something, then you start up a dialogue, and then eventually you get the trust of the victim, and then you can start extort for money, etc. So the battle spells is actually just to lure away those people who will never fall into the trap anyways.
Okay.
So that is very, very targeted. It is not because those who are creating these phishing mails are bad at writing. So that is very deliberate.
Okay, right. That makes me feel a little bit better that I managed to spot them. You mentioned about, was it called spear phishing? This is where you're specifically...
This image looks like it comes from the CTO to the PA. Please immediately transfer some money to some account because we are closing a big deal, or we are in, and please...
It's always urgent.
Yes, it's very urgent. But this about the spear phishing part is about where you mention specific names and you make it look like specific people.
And I mean, how much can this escalate? Is it just they'll keep piling the pressure on, or do they use multiple methods of trying to lure someone?
They're trying new methods all the time, of course.
Yeah.
So and there are actually lying a lot of research behind, or you can say information gathering behind these kind of spear fist attacks, where the attackers really do a lot of information gathering around the company and the people in there to make these phishing attacks as legitimate looking as possible. So
okay, so it's the opposite of the typos they're looking.
Yeah, that is the opposite of the typos.
Yeah.
Yes.
We started this conversation talking about the rise in ransomware. You mentioned as one of the areas of threats. Just in terms of your take on this kind of slightly maybe controversial or questionable area. There's always the question when you're under attack as a company, you're being asked to pay a ransom. The money is probably not going to be going to good use. What's your take on this situation?
The approach should be, in my opinion, that you invest heavily into preventing the situation from occurring in the first place, and making sure that if you are hit, when you're hit, that it has the minimum amount of damage it can do. And there are procedures, there are best practices in place for that. The problem is that, of course, it costs money. It costs a lot of money to have these kind of plans, disaster recovery plans, business continuity plans, and all these kind of how to react when disaster hits you. It costs a lot of money. And it is easy to cut on that budget and say, it probably works well. Okay, let's see, because you don't get immediate, you can say, return of investment on money spent on security. You only get it when you are attacked, of course. So that would be my approach to this, and also because when organizations are not properly secured and do not properly have these plans to limit the damage done and ideally prevent it, it is also just encouraging these criminal guys to do more ransomware attacks, because when there is a market for criminal activities, of course it will continue to be there.
Yeah.
So we won't get this solved until companies, organizations actually make it a bad business to be a ransomware attacker.
And prevention is
prevention
crucial.
is the best way to do this. Yeah.
Carsten, that's all we have time for. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It has been a pleasure. Thank you very much.